Throughout my travels so far, I've pretty much been talking with companies that would be designated as small businesses. Statistically, small businesses make up 99% of all businesses in the country, but it seems that much of our conversations about impact revolve around large corporations. Now, researchers have calculated that almost 4% of greenhouse gas emissions are released by air conditioners. Trane Technologies is one of the largest manufacturers of HVAC systems in the world, so I traveled to North Carolina to speak with their Chief Technology and Sustainability Officer. I wanted to find out firsthand how a corporation with such a big global footprint can claim to be contributing to social and environmental justice solutions. All right, well, welcome to another episode of Ripple on the Road. I am Mike Shodroff. I am founder and CEO of the Ripple Center, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization who believes that today in capitalism we have some broken systems as it pertains to human equity and dignity and environmental stewardship. Our mission is to mold, create, promote, and to talk with individuals, organizations, companies, corporations that are actually changing and disrupting those systems so that when we look at the triple bottom line, profit, people, and planet, they all work together in that equation. Which brings me here today to Davidson, North Carolina, where I am at the campus of Trane Technologies. And with me is Paul Camuti, who is the Senior Vice President and Chief Technology and Sustainability Officer of Trane Technologies. So, Paul, thank you.
Yeah.
Right? I saw your reaction to the title.
That's a lot.
Help me understand, what are the roles and responsibilities with, I'm not going to repeat the title, but with what
no
you do.
problem. Yeah, so well, Mike, first of all, I really appreciate you taking the time to come see us. What I do is I'm part of the leadership team of the company, and I've been with the company now about 10 years and really focused on how we innovate and how we really address market opportunities around our strategy. And the strategy and purpose of the company really being to be a sustainable enterprise and to do good for the planet. So if you're going to work on strategy and you're going to focus strategy on sustainability, then you get to innovate around technology and talk to people about sustainability. So that's what I do.
Now, Paul, for those of the audience that don't quite know everything about Trane Technologies, can you give us a brief history of the company and what are you manufacturing?
Sure. Well, the legacy of the company goes back 100 years, and I won't drag you through 100 years of history, Mike, but the recent thing is we've been focused as probably the leading company in the world providing what we call climate control technology, HVAC equipment and services and energy solutions for customers everywhere in the world. So if it comes to heating, cooling, homes, buildings, industrial plants, and interestingly, the cold chain of transportation, right? Pharmaceuticals and food produce that get shipped all over the world. We provide the technology and the services that make that system that most people don't think about every day work.
So it's interesting because you're talking about HVAC systems, right? Heating,
Right.
Ventilation, air conditioning,
Right.
and refrigeration systems. But often, I don't know if people would consider that as contributing to climate change solutions. So how does that all kind of play into this?
Yeah, well, so that's, again, if you think about, we talk about ESG a lot, and the E or environmental part of the story is related to climate change and global warming. And interestingly enough, I think the built environment, buildings, homes, and transportation contribute the most amount to the global warming challenge, right? So there's a couple of things. One is, everybody's always focused on energy and fossil fuels, but those are used in a lot of cases to generate electricity. That electricity is used in buildings, homes, and industry, and the biggest user of electricity in buildings, homes, and industry is heating and cooling things. So, the emissions might come from a power plant, but that power plant's generating electricity that's powering air conditioning
Okay.
in a lot of cases. So the use of the electricity is really related to this emissions that come from our products. So that's the primary thing that we're focused on. So, the basic idea is that if we can have the most energy efficient products, will use less energy, it'll require less fossil fuels, can be powered by renewables, and there's a way of really decarbonizing the world if we can reduce the amount of electricity that's demanded in heating and cooling things, and that's sort of our primary role. The second thing, which people would definitely not realize, is that inside of the products, we use things called refrigerants. Sometimes if in your house or whatever, the system won't be performing and a technician will come out and say, well, you have a refrigerant leak. Well, if you're leaking refrigerant, this is a gas that is used in the system to actually perform the function that it needs to. And those gases historically have been thousands times worse for the atmosphere and contribute to global warming at a much higher rate. So we're also innovating a lot to make sure that there's less of those gases used, and the gases that we do use have low or no impact on the environment.
Wow. And is that, are all of those, scientific studies and things happening here all over the globe?
Yeah, this has been, first of all, I think the community around the world, people that work on this have been working on different aspects of it. It's a very complicated recipe of how do these refrigerants work in air conditioning to consume the electricity.
Okay.
If you change the refrigerant, it might require more electricity, so there's a big balance that goes on here. And there have been different goals that we've had over the years. So originally, people might be familiar with like the Montreal Protocol. This was, back in the 70s, we were really worried about the ozone layer. And there are a set of chemicals and gases that were harmful to the ozone layer, which it was a magnifier of solar radiation, which was warming the planet. And so through the United Nations, global community of people, we got together and put some regulations in place to phase down these chemicals that were harmful to the ozone. Building on that, we're now doing a similar thing with these chemicals. They're used in HVAC equipment, as I already mentioned. They're also used for other uses in insulation and foam blowing and aerosols. There was recently a global amendment to address what's called the global warming potential of these. So, international community of scientists that are really studying the effects of these materials on the atmosphere and working collectively to make things better.
Wow, that's a lot to overview.
Yeah, It's, as I said, it's complicated. We try not to get into that level of detail, but I think it's important for folks to understand there's really two main contributors to global warming when it comes to HVAC, and it's the refrigerants and it's the energy that we consume. Okay.
So now, Trane Technologies is a publicly traded company.
It is.
Which means amongst all your stakeholders, you have stockholders. What is the relationship between stockholders and sustainability? Because often you would think, people just say, just make me money. How do you educate or explain or stockholders understand, like, no, that is part of the system?
Yeah, I think, again, when you run a public company or any company, for-profit company for that matter, I think, balancing stakeholder interest is the trick, right? For us, you think about our employees, we think about our shareholders, and really importantly, and the one I left for last, but is really the one that we want to spend the most time talking about, is our customers. So as things, the sustainability topic just generally for an engineer is pretty straightforward, right? You never learn to do things that are going to make situations worse. Right. Generally, we want to make things better.
You hope so, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the goal. I mean, people have often asked, how much time do we spend thinking about sustainability and making things more sustainable? And I'm like, well, as an engineer, I think we wake up every day trying to make things better. So the most important thing that we can do is focus on our customers and help to enable their sustainability journeys, which has become a pretty popular thing these days. wasn't always that way. But if we're focused on delivering sustainable solutions to our customers, that'll generate the profit that'll keep our shareholders happy about what we're doing, growing and expanding margins and them a good return on their investment. Things have changed around a little bit. It's not, investors these days also are, know that over the long term, right, the companies are doing good, right, or do well, right? So I think it's really important that we have that focus. It shows up in so many ways as a positive benefit for the company, though.
That's great. Yeah, as one thing, we focus a lot on Gen Z.
Yeah.
And we do a fellowship program with Gen Zers who want to start social impact businesses. And it seems as if all of the statistics are pointing that the present and future generations are all thinking about the future of the planet, and that's how they're spending their dollars, and that's where they even want to work.
I think that's a huge point, and it's something that we learned along this journey, frankly. We, in the early days, this goes back, we started this transformation really and leaned into this sustainability topic about 11 or 12 years ago. Okay. And at the time, it was really done around a set of scenarios, right. And the scenarios were, is this topic of sustainability going to become more important in the future or less important in the future? And if it was going to become more important in the future, what are the implications on our company and other companies? So we thought long and hard about this at the beginning. And so we had, a pretty analytical view of this, and, for all the right reasons, we really pivoted the company to be focused on this sustainability journey. One of the first things that we didn't really consider in this scenario was something you just mentioned, which is that, people who are coming into the workforce these days have a lot of alternatives, particularly technology people. There's so many exciting things to go work on.
Sure.
Who would want to come work at a company that manufactures things when, you might be able to do the leading edge of, some medical technology or some other technology which has clear direct social value. For us, we offer the same opportunity, right? I mean, when people understand that buildings contribute to 40% of the energy consumed in the building is HVAC, and you're not going to be able to reduce carbon emissions and hit our global warming challenges without decarbonizing the built environment and the cold chain, and that we need real innovation across a whole spectrum of technologies, and that the work that we do, right, every day is contributing to make the planet a better way, really has attracted a whole nother group of folks who are interested in the technology that we're pioneering and the applications and the business that we run. So that's the best thing. We do an employee engagement survey every year. We get, first of all, huge response from our employees, and the sustainability topics and the innovation topics are always the highest rated ones. So.
Well, and speaking of, right, I know you have an initiative in the company called Operation Possible.
Yeah.
Where it's, you're talking about employee engagement. Could you talk more about that?
Sure, yeah. Again, the core purpose of the company, right, of trying to, deliver on our sustainability imperative really is at the core. But, there's other people. We got a lot of people that work in the company, over 35,000 folks all over the globe, and that do different things, right? They're not only, selling, applying, innovating, delivering our products, but they might be, working in our HR department or in our legal function or in our finance function. And, we heard some feedback, hey, the sustainability work that all these engineers are doing is really important. I want to contribute also. And, you might work outside the company to be able to go do that. So, the idea here was to capture the hearts, minds, and effort of the whole employee base around doing some social innovation. We didn't. I use the term put our thumb on the scale a lot. We didn't really direct this at all. But what we did is we set up a crowdsourcing platform so that anybody in the company that said, it started by just saying, hey, I think the biggest problem in the world is food waste, or I think plastics are a big problem. And so we just went out and asked people, what do you think the biggest challenge or biggest imperative or biggest injustice is that the company could have an impact on? And we spent, the better part of 6 months just soliciting, organizing, and aligning on what those things could be. And then we kind of put that together with things that we do in our innovation system and picked one. And the first challenge that we picked was, sort of an absurdity, as these are called, of, why is there so much food waste, right, which is a big contributor to global warming and climate change, but there's a lot of people that are still hungry.
Sure.
It just fundamentally doesn't make sense that those two things are happening simultaneously. And, and then once we had that challenge out there, we went back to the crowd and said, okay, well, who's got an idea on something that'll have an impact here? And we got thousands of ideas from around. And again, same process. We affinitized those, pull them together, put similar things together, rank and rate with the team what the leading concept is, and then we'll build those prototypes and put them out. And so for this food waste and hunger challenge, we looked in emerging markets that a lot of the fresh produce is sold by street vendors.
Okay.
And they have no way of controlling the temperature. And so actually a street cart vendor will push their cart, they have to buy their inventory, they take it to a street corner and sell it. It's in a hot part of the world in most cases. There's spoilage. The price of the vegetables or fruits are more in the morning than they are in the afternoon, and they barely eke out a living because the waste is all the vendor's responsibility.
Wow.
So we came up with some novel new technology that actually radiates heat in a passive way and designed a cover for a cart that improves the yield for these street vendors. We built some. We sent a group of people out in India to some pretty remote places to try it out, and it turns out that we were able to reduce food loss, right, which has a climate impact, but it also raised the income and profitability for the street vendors, so it kind of pulls them up along the way. So this was like a win-win-win scenario, and it's a great example of unleashing just the innovation power through crowds of our company on a problem we normally wouldn't touch.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking here of refrigerated trucks, and now we're talking about push carts.
Absolutely.
Which is incredible.
You think about an umbrella with a special material on the top of it that radiates the heat back to space, right? This
Wow.
is a technology you would never run into in a normal day, and pretty inexpensive, and it really changes the lives of, there's 38 million people on the planet that make their living by selling produce off of a cart.
Wow.
That's incredible.
That's a pretty significant statistic.
Yeah.
Now speaking of also, solutions and thinking long term, I know that you have 2030 sustainability commitments. Could you talk about what are some of those and what is it going to take to achieve them? Yeah,
there's really, three groupings of these. There's quite a few of them. There's 26 different initiatives, and I won't go through all one by one. You'll be glad to know. I guess everybody would be glad to know. There are really three buckets of things that we're working on. We're committed to reducing our customers' greenhouse gas emissions. So, when our customers buy our HVAC or transport refrigeration solutions, they historically had an impact on the environment. And by improving the efficiencies and changing the materials, we're able to reduce our customers' emissions significantly. And we believe collectively, if you add up all those savings between now and 2030, it'll be over a gigaton of CO2.
Wow.
So that's a lot of CO2. Get asked that pretty frequently, but it's at the time that we made it, it was the largest corporate commitment to greenhouse gas reduction that we were aware of. The second thing is you can't really ask your customers to go do that if you don't do something yourself. And so we expect to be, net zero carbon by 2030 and carbon neutral by 2050. So we're doing a lot of projects in our operations. This building that you're in right now today is a good example of it. But really reducing the energy footprint of our buildings, our fleets, and making sure that we're generating our own renewable power and those type of things. But we'll be at net zero by 2030. So that's an internal commitment, and there's a set of other things that go along with that, waste and absolute energy usage. And then the third category, which I think is probably the most impactful for people, is a set of social and sustainability goals where we're, the one that I like to focus on is gender parity in our workforce.
Okay.
By 2030 as well.
So that actually brings up another question I had. Again, triple bottom line, for those that don't know, usually the bottom line of a company, right, is just the profit.
Right.
But when you're a social impact company, you're also looking at the effect you have on people and planet. Could you talk about, the people part of the equation with here, whether it's through DEI initiatives or?
Yeah, again, this is another pretty simple situation, Mike. You can look at a whole bunch of studies around this, and it's a really simple fact that, diverse, inclusive, and engaged teams outperform any other thing in business, right? Whether it's crazy singular entrepreneurs or less diverse teams or however. But if you just think about the only sustainable competitive advantage in a company, in my opinion and in our opinion, is the people, right? And so it's sort of a competition for making sure that they work for you and are aligned. And so, look, it's a very easy equation. We want to make sure that the company has a high purpose, right? Because that's the best people are going to come work for a purpose. Yeah, everybody wants to make money. Our shareholders want to make money. You and I want to make money. You got to pay the bills. But look, there's got to be more to it every day. And if you don't understand that right at the beginning of your career, the longer you hang around, the more interesting that gets.
Sure.
So I think purpose is key, but then it's like, who are you working with, and is the company engaging me and getting the best out of me every day, getting my best every day? And I think our focus on this social side of sustainability really is a simple equation. It's, align people that have a shared purpose on positively impacting the planet. You engage them, you respect them, and you respect diverse opinions. And the performance of the company will, day in and day out, reward our shareholders for sure.
It's great philosophy.
Yeah.
And reality.
Yeah, I think that's, we've been at it long enough that you can see a reinforcement loop here, right? That if you believe it and you do it, you can actually demonstrate that that's how it's worked for us.
All right. Paul, before I ask the final question, is there anything else that you want to add that I haven't maybe, brought up?
No, I think my basic view is there's an incredible opportunity here, right? It's very large challenges. The more you look into the big challenges that we're faced on the planet, whether it be climate change or the engagement and social equity issues that we have, they're very large challenges. But I'm optimistic that there's large groups of people, right, that are focused on making a positive impact. That's the pathway to solving some of these largest issues.
That's great. So final question.
Yeah.
Right, and I know we're talking about heating and cooling systems, but in an ideal situation, you get to shut off your home system and open up the windows. What's the ideal temperature for you outside?
Oh, I like about how it is today. Mid-60s for me is perfect.
Sounds good. I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah.
All right. Listen, Paul, it was such a pleasure. I appreciate you inviting me in here and getting to ask you a few questions. And just keep up the amazing work, rooting for Trane Technologies and the things that you're doing for sustainability and people.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Mike.
All right.